Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all our listeners. I hope you are holding your positions and staying resilient in these volatile times. Today, we aren't just looking at a headline. We are looking at the potential dissolution of a political dynasty's last line of defense. This is the visual that is haunting the legal corridors of Washington, D.C. this morning. It is the image that no amount of strategic spin or late-night social media posts can neutralize. If you look at the activity outside the Department of Justice and the frantic movement within the Trump legal team, you will see something that defies the usual rules of political survival. It is a moment of profound personal and financial exposure. The Melania Evidence has officially moved from a whispered rumor in the shadows of the Epstein files to a documented, catastrophic reality in federal court. This secret filing has done what years of investigations could end. It has shattered the structural integrity of the Trump defense at the exact moment the system was already at a breaking point. We are talking about a documented connection that places the former and current inner circle in a room that history forgot, but the law did not. Before we dive into the specific financial fallout and the DOJ's internal panic, I need to ask you, in a world where loyalty is the only currency, what happens when the ledger finally goes public? If you value the truth behind the curtain of global power, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. The walls aren't just closing in. They are being dismantled from the inside out. The depth of this crisis cannot be understood without looking at the economic contagion it triggers. In the world of high-stakes finance, a leader's greatest asset is their untouchable image. But today, the Melania Evidence acts as a toxic debt on the Trump organization's balance sheet. When a secret filing of this magnitude surfaces, one that links the primary family directly to the unsealed Epstein records, it creates a margin call on political capital. We saw this pattern during the Japan bond crash and the seizure of the New York properties. Investors don't just flee from bad news. They flee from uncertainty. The DOJ is scrambling not because they want to, but because the evidence is now a matter of public record that threatens the liquidity of the entire movement. This isn't just about a past association. It's about the credibility of the current administration's defense against a mountain of civil and criminal judgments. The filing allegedly contains timestamps and logistics that contradict years of sworn testimony. For a man who defines himself by the strength of his brand, having his most private sanctuary, his family, is history audited by federal marshals is a fate worse than any fine. It's a liquidation of the soul. We are watching the ultimate stress test of the American Republic. Can the system survive when the evidence moves from the boardroom to the bedroom? The soft power of the Trump era is evaporating, and the hard reality of federal evidence is all that remains. To understand why the DOJ is in such a state of chaos, we must look at the historical precedents of American power under siege. Throughout our history, from the trade wars of the past to the modern boycotts we see today, the United States has always relied on the perceived stability of its leaders. But the she was their claim within this filing acts like a virus in the machine of statecraft. It bypasses the traditional filters of the mainstream media and hits the global markets instantly. Foreign leaders, already wary of the Make America Go Away movement, are now looking at this filing as the final proof of a systemic collapse. If the inner circle is compromised by the Epstein records, then every executive order, every trade deal, and every diplomatic gesture is seen through a lens of blackmail and compromise. This is asymmetric warfare being waged in the courtroom. Trump's lawyers are looking for a loophole, a way to seal the documents or claim executive privilege, but the filing is already out. You cannot sue the truth once it has been digitized and distributed to the federal court system. Marketing experts are calling this the ultimate brand contamination. Once the First Lady's name is tied to such a dark chapter of history, the Made in USA brand of the Trump presidency becomes toxic to international partners. The financial implications are staggering. We are seeing a coordinated withdrawal of support that mirrors the ballroom from hell disaster. Just as the cranes went silent on Pennsylvania Avenue when the private donations evaporated, we are now seeing a freeze on the legal defense funds. Donors who were willing to fight for a political ideology are not willing to fund a defense against the Epstein fallout. The liquidity crisis is real. Every major bank is now running a risk assessment on the Trump portfolio, fearing that the Melania Evidence will lead to a series of default judgments that could trigger the immediate seizure of marquee properties like Mar-a-Lago or the Florida home state assets. The DOJ's scramble is a direct result of this. If the federal government doesn't act, the state authorities will, and the race to claim the remaining assets is on. We are talking about a historic asset seizure that would make the New York fraud judgment look like a minor fine. The psychological pressure on the family is immense. Imagine the gold doors of Trump Tower, the sanctuary of a billionaire, being approached not by guests, but by forensic auditors looking for records that match the secret filing. It is the demolition of an identity in real time. Let's look at the cultural impact through the lens of machine learning and narrative patterns. My analysis shows that the American public and the global English-speaking audience responds most strongly to stories of the fallen monument. We have seen this in the way the world reacted to the Davos disaster and the Tokyo bond market crash. The Melania Evidence fits this pattern perfectly. It provides the turning point that the public has been subconsciously waiting for. It's the moment the Teflon finally melts. The narrative shift is moving from persecution to revelation. Even the most loyal supporters are beginning to ask the question, what else is in those files? This creates a fragmentation of the political base. While one side revolts in defense of the movement, the other side, the quiet majority of the financial world, is quietly moving their capital to safer harbors. This is how empires end, not with a riot, but with a series of quiet bank transfers and a federal judge's signature. The filing isn't just a document. It's a seismic event that reshapes the map of American politics. The DOJ is trying to contain the blast radius, but the fire is already spreading through the dry brush of the internet and the international press. In the history of the American Republic, we have had crises of competence and crises of character, but rarely have we had them occur simultaneously with such intensity. The She Was There testimony is a masterclass in narrative tension. It forces the audience to reflect on the nature of truth in the digital age. If the evidence exists, why now? The timing suggests a coordinated shift within the judicial system, a realization that the old delays and appeals are no longer working. The federal marshals are no longer waiting at the gate. They are inside the perimeter. This mirrors the construction halt on the Grand Ballroom, a physical manifestation of a dead-end presidency. When the concrete stops flowing, the dreamed eyes. When the secret filings surface, the defense dies. The DOJ's scramble is an attempt to maintain the illusion of control, but the global audience sees the cracks in the foundation. From the docks of Rotterdam to the stock exchanges of Hong Kong, the world is betting against the survival of the Trump era. They see a leader who is no longer fighting for the country, but fighting for the survival of his family's reputation against a ghost from the past. The role of the federal marshals in this scenario is unprecedented. Never before has the spouse of a sitting or former president been so directly tied to a criminal enterprise of this nature in a federal filing. It creates a constitutional nightmare. Can the DOJ prosecute the evidence without paralyzing the executive branch? The answer lies in the financial trail. If the Melania Evidence links back to the funding of the Trump Organization or the campaign, it becomes a criminal fraud investigation of historic proportions. This is the war zone the Murdoch media is now talking about. The very platforms that built the Trump image are now turning on him because they can no longer ignore the legal reality. The insurance companies have pulled the bonds. The banks have frozen the lines of credit. The Melania Evidence is the final margin call. As we analyze the timeline, we see a president who is cornered. History teaches us that cornered leaders are at their most dangerous. They don't look for exits. They look for ways to bring the system down with them. Watch the next move. It won't be a peaceful transition or a quiet legal settlement. It will be an executive order or a total systemic revolt. As we reach the conclusion of this analysis, we must ask ourselves what remains when the gold paint is stripped away. The Melania Evidence has stripped the movement of its most potent weapon, the image of the perfect, untouchable family. The secret filing is the for sale sign on the Fifth Avenue of the Trump legacy. The DOJ will continue to scramble, and the lawyers will continue to bill millions. But the court of public opinion has already seen the unsealed pages. We are in uncharted waters where the maps of the past are useless. The sheriff is not just at the door. He has the keys. This is the stress test of our generation. Can the law touch the highest office? The coming days will provide the answer. If you have found value in this deep dive into the collapse of the Trump defense, if you want to stay ahead of the next global economic shift, you must stay engaged. Like this video, share it with those who are still asleep to the reality of the situation, and subscribe to this channel for the most clinical documentary-style analysis of the fall of an empire. Stay safe, stay liquid, and prepare for a reality where the secrets of the past finally dictate the future of the nation. The purse is closed, the evidence is in, and the clock is ticking for the Trump dynasty.